Hey guys, this is my recap here from stage one Eufaula Bass Pro Tour. I'm just going to kind of go into the baits and techniques that I used that enabled me to get into the knockout round and have a shot at that championship round. First off, the first day, I did most of my damage on a chatterbait. Power bait, the Deal trailer. It's the best chatterbait trailer I think I've ever used. It's got a real thick profile, it's got a tall profile, so it sits more vertical in the water, which gives it more of a true baitfish style profile, and the tail actually sits vertical as well, so it really does look like a true baitfish profile in the water. And I had this paired with 20-pound Gamma Edge fluorocarbon on one of my level 710 medium heavy rods, which is probably my favorite rod that we have in our lineup. It's probably the most versatile rod, even for almost an 8-foot rod. There's so many different things you can do with this. It's really good for a chatterbait in situations where you're making long casts like in grass. Not so much for wanting to skip a chatterbait up under docks and things like that. It's more of an open water rod, making long casts like I said, which is what I was doing with this thing on that day one, which was just targeting pad stems, a little bit of cattails and some isolated mats, just fishing around the openings, basically in the mouth of a creek. You know, the fish were coming in to spawn, so I was fishing out closer to the mouth, trying to target bigger fish. And that's what I did, catch 3 of my fish on that first day. The big fish I caught on day one came in the same area, around the same type of cover and everything, but I actually caught it on a spinnerbait. This is a Buckeye Lures. It's a 1/2 ounce spinnerbait, white on white painted blades, using a Berkeley War Pig, or a Grass Pig, I'm sorry, this is Berkeley Power Bait Grass Pig as a trailer. You know, I still was able to maintain that 1/2 ounce weight, which I wanted, but I could add some bulk to it so I could slow it down. And basically I'm just casting in those little lanes and just pretty much slow rolling this thing, but I could still see it. You know, it's keeping it up in the water column. So it's up there pretty high, close to the surface, not quite waking it, but it's still up there pretty high. And for this one, again, 20-pound Gamma Edge fluorocarbon, this in a 7.6 heavy flipping stick. I was wanting to use a little bit beefier rod on this setup, just because I wanted to be able to power this fish out. You know, when you hook a fish on a spinnerbait, chances are you get him 99% of the time. So I wasn't so much worried about playing that fish, I just wanted to winch him out of that cover. And this was a Revo Premier. I always go with the high-speed reels on everything I throw, and the spinnerbait was no different. So 7.3-to-1, you know, Revo Premier. Great combination for, you know, fishing a spinnerbait in heavy cover like that. As we moved on to day two, conditions changed a lot. The water fell considerably where I was fishing. This was my day two, which was actually 2 days after my first day. And the fish that I caught in that shallow water at the mouth of the creek, it had gotten too shallow. So it was no good, and I had to change tactics a little bit. And what I learned throughout the day, and I didn't learn much because I didn't catch a whole lot, but what was able to, you know, propel me into that knockout round was moving out offshore a little bit. I was just looking at little small points, sometimes even a hump just out in the middle of the creek. And I was looking at suspended fish that I found with my Garmin live scope, and in order to catch what I caught that day, I used the Berkeley Power Swimmer. It's a 3.8-inch power swimmer in the white with a Buckeye Lures J-Wheel swim bait head, and pretty much just, you know, looking at shad balls and trying to see isolated fish or groups of fish with the live scope in about 10 to 12 foot of water, suspended out over, you know, 16 to 18 foot of water, which was kind of, I didn't really anticipate fishing like that when I got here because the water was muddy. So it's not really a technique that I'd planned on using, but this is one of the baits that I pick up. So that's what I went with that day, and that enabled me to get into that knockout round. 7.2 medium heavy rod, which is this is our all-purpose rod. So you can do everything with this rod, from throw spinner baits, smaller jigs, I mean Cinco, weightless worm, anything like that. This rod's good for, but it's really good. You know, it has just a really good tip for throwing that light 1/4 ounce swim bait head like that. So, and once I made it to the knockout round, again, things changed, and the water had fallen even more. I thought the swim bait bite might be better, but it actually fell off, and it was just completely dead. And the guys that were fishing in the same area with me, you know, doing some similar things, they weren't catching them either. So after about an hour or so, I abandoned that and started just moving around to different parts of the lake looking for fish, and ended up catching some fish. The 3 fish that I caught yesterday, I caught punching with a 1 ounce tungsten and a Berkeley Power Bait Pit Boss. This is the smaller Pit Boss with the Berkeley Fusion 3/0 straight shank hook. A real good bait for punching. You know, when you're wanting to fish a smaller bait like this, or a smaller weight like this, I didn't want to go heavy because the hyacinths were pretty thin. You didn't really need a heavy bait, so this 3-inch Pit Boss just pairs really well with the 1 ounce sinker, and that still enables it to get through some of that, you know, that thick vegetation, but give you a smaller profile, which I thought that the fish were kind of preferring yesterday. So that's the fish that I caught yesterday, the 3 fish that came on the Berkeley Pit Boss. Here, again, same rod as my spinnerbait. I'll use the same rods for a lot of different techniques. A lot of guys think that you have to use the same rod, for one specific technique, and that's all it's good for. But with what I found over the years, I can really use a 7/6 heavy flipping stick for a lot of different things. So I was throwing my spinnerbait on it, that 1/2 ounce spinnerbait, as well as this light punch rig. So 7'6" heavy level flipping stick, 50-pound Gamma torque braid. And again, Revo Premier 7.3 to 1. Didn't catch a whole lot of fish. There's not a lot of people that caught a whole lot of fish, but we were catching quality fish, and I was able to get some of those quality bites on day one. My Falcon boat and Evan Ridge G2 ran flawlessly all week. My Garmin Force trolling motor was really, really good to me all week as well. So I'm looking forward to getting on the road, and we got Okeechobee coming up in a couple weeks, and hopefully I can make that knockout round and have a shot at the championship round again.